Hello everyone. So today I thought I will talk about underestimating labels and components and other native features in Jira. Now, of course, Jira can be customized, and there are a lot of wonderful things that you can do with Jira, like workflows. There are a lot of apps that you can install, and of course, you can create reports natively. And Jira is of course known for the customization aspect, so you can actually map your own process. Now I've been saying this, and I will say this again today. Always try to get the most out of your Jira instance. Of course, you should try to standardize your Jira schemes. You should try to make some kind of a central change control board, or your tools team should be the one dictating that yes, if we have, let us say, 10 different types of projects in Jira, and if you're working in the same company within, let us say, same division or whatever, same way of working, then you should try to use the same sort of schemes and configurations. Now, when people realize that yes, Jira can be customized, Jira can do, or basically we can do automations to make our life easy, they try to overdo it. And today I thought I'll probably talk about just using labels. And this is also applicable for those teams who have been using Jira, but they don't really have admin rights, and they just have, let us say, a very basic, or not really basic, but out of the box version of Jira, where, or maybe they have like some customized version of Jira, but someone has dictated that yes, you should be using this workflow. Yes, you have these fields that you have to use. Now, in Jira, when you create a new issue, usually, I mean, not always, but usually there is a label field. If not, I think, in my opinion, label field along with component and most likely fixed versions, and the versions in Jira, also known as releases, in a project, should be used as much as you can. Now, let us talk about the purpose. So component is basically a way in a Jira project, within a Jira project, specific to a Jira project, where you can break up your project into different modules. So this is very important. It is not always category, although you can use component to create different categories. But essentially, if you have a big project where you think your project can be divided into various modules or subsections, then you can use component. And this is a feature in Jira from the very beginning. Components can also have their own component leads. For example, in my particular project, if I create a new bug, I can select here admin, or I can select here UI. So if the bug was related in the backend or in the user interface, I can select it. So today I thought I'll probably focus a bit more on the label. Now, label is nothing but a free tag feature. So you can basically create any label that you want, something like label 1, label, oh sorry. So when you create a label 1, you can actually click on this label and it will be created for you. Then you can do something like label 2 and maybe label 3. Of course, labels are not always a great choice, because anyone has the right to add these labels freely, and it is a bit difficult to control the the nomenclature. For example, let us say you have a need where you want to tag your issues with a specific label. So yes, you can do that, but it is a bit difficult to enforce this. And it is a bit difficult to, of course, make sure that people are following that particular norm. Let us say you want your labels to start with label and then -4, whatever. Maybe you are working on a specific, let us say, a specific category. So it could be label, or it could be something like category -1 label 1, and so on. So I think if you can live with this particular feature or ability or inability where anyone can add these labels freely, then there are a lot of wonderful things that you can do. Now, if you have a lot of issues with multiple labels and multiple issues are there in your Jira instance, then you can always report on it. Now, if I raise a bug, let me just raise a bug. Now, of course, we do have this new issue created, which is of type bug, and we have just added a few labels. Now, making sure that everyone is following this particular pattern is, of course, difficult. Definitely, I'll agree. It is, of course, not always the best option, but when you don't have admin rights, when you're working in a controlled environment where you may not even have rights, or someone is probably pushing you back from the admin team that no, will not really add a custom field, then in that case, you should probably within your team come up with a unique strategy that yes, we should probably use some kind of a label like this. And it is not very difficult, because again, going back to my concern that Jira is not really going to do your work. Jira is a tool, and you have to use a tool. For example, if you are let us say you're working in sprints, right? Now, when you work in sprints, you have these wonderful reports that can tell you the progress of the sprint, but it is all not going to work, or none of it will work at all if people are not really managing your sprints. So your scrum masters, your project managers, they should do it on a day-to-day basis, and that is why I think managerial positions or people who are managing the work, leads, they are the ones who usually spend quite a lot of time in the tool, any tool, but of course a tool like Jira, because they look at the tool to make a plan, to also define what has to be done, what is the overall progress, what is happening right now, what is bothering us today, and they have these features like labels, components. And now when you have these labels, of course you can search based on these labels, and of course you can always do a not Google search, but a simple JQL based search. Now, good thing about these labels is that you can always save your searches as your filters. So you can do something like labels in, and you can maybe find all the bulk import issues. So this is something that I think mentioned. I always mention this whenever you're doing bulk import. Always, this is something that I've learned from day one of my experience with Jira, because I used to do a lot of migrations to Jira, and I used to do a lot of CSV imports. But when you're doing CSV import, you need a way to revert. So whenever you're doing a CSV import, make sure you add a unique label, some random string, but of course, if it makes sense. So just add a label, and you will then be able to figure out all the issues that were bulk imported, for example, something similar. Now you can also create reports using EasyBI, and using EasyBI you can actually create wonderful reports. And I did mention it like a couple of times in my videos, that when you're creating a report using EasyBI, I'll probably, because I'm in a process of making a lot of videos on EasyBI topics anyways, I'll probably show you very quickly. So if you want to create a label, not a label, but if you want to create a report based on a label, you can always like drag your labels here, something like this, and you can of course expand it, and it will give you all the labels and along with the number of issues. So we are of course looking at the count based on label, but you can also simply drag your issues. It will of course give you all the issues, right, in your Jira instance, or maybe for a specific project, whatever. Now, what I'll do, I'll probably go to the hierarchy, and I'll just focus on, or maybe I'll just focus on, what shall I select here? Okay, let us take a look at all the issues. So if you click on issue, it will of course give you all the issues, and you can of course decide what you want to do with these groupings. But what we can also do here is, if you try to search for I'm sure there is something called as issue label. Yeah, issue labels. You can show your issue label here, and it will of course give you this information straight away on your report. And what I can also do is I can try to hide the empty rows, or I mean, depending upon depending on the format of the report, but maybe, okay, let us do something like this, remove, and maybe I will just go and take a look at this. All right. So let us do one thing. If I click on all issues and if I maybe get rid of all the projects. Okay, let me just do it again. All issues, and if you expand this, so basically what I was trying to show you is that when you're working on any report, you can of course create a report with the labels displayed like this on your table, but you can also create your own measure, and you can also create your own measure that will show you a specific label. So, and this is of course very useful when you are trying to understand if let us say within your sprint and within your project, for example, if people are following those labels or not. For example, if I just focus on one of the project, because we were I think working on one of the project I believe. So let me select here Android. So if you look here within the Android project, we have these issues. Now what I can also do is I can try to hide. I'll just remove this because we are just focused on Android. Remove again. And what I can do now is I can I can of course take a look at the labels. But if you notice here, if you have a report like this, or maybe you can create a measure that will separate the labels in a different column. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that when you have these labels in front of you, you can actually see, okay, so people are following that pattern that you want them to follow or not. So all I wanted to say today is that create these labels, especially when you don't really have all the admin rights, because you are free to add your own labels, your own tags, and using the labels in Jira, along with of course components and other couple of system fields, you can actually you can still do a lot of good project management, because Jira essentially, I think you should always remember, Jira essentially is an issue tracker. You can do project management using it, but just by using Jira, you won't be able to do project management. I mean, project management itself is a very wide domain, and it usually doesn't really involve tools. It involves people. People have to do project management. Project managers do project management, not really tools like Jira. So don't really expect wonderful things from Jira, because you can definitely start using it. But if you are not really following, if you don't really have a good leader, or if you're not really following some norms, or if there is no culture of owning your own activities, for example, if I'm a developer at all levels, I think there should be some sense of ownership, and this sense of ownership will not really come from developers. It has to be the leaders. It could be your managers, your tech leads, or maybe your CEO. If your CEO is using Jira, then you can expect a good culture in the company. And usually in big companies, in big organizations, usually, not always, people above a certain level, they don't really care about Jira, to be honest. And it's a sad thing, because they're still using old tools, old tools that work. But when you have things in Jira, then why look elsewhere? Because if all you're doing, if all you care about is information coming from Jira, then why take a screenshot of a pie chart and then paste it somewhere else? It is really stupid thing to do. Or why pull data from Jira? I mean, do it if you are able to set up some kind of sync where you're able to pull your Jira data and maybe dump it in a separate reporting tool. That is fine. That is like doing integration. It could be for reporting. But if you are taking screenshots, and the moment you take a screenshot, from that particular moment, from that particular second onwards, you are looking at an old information, like the information which is not really, the pie chart is not really valid anymore. So that is really, and of course, I'm just exaggerating, but it's more about the moment. I mean, of course, you will take a screenshot, you'll prepare your report. Then by the time you send your report, and by the time people will read it, or by the time you present it, it is like a bit old. So try to do things within Jira if you can. Not always but try to use it as much as you can. Jira has a lot to offer, but I believe because Jira has these customization capabilities, people expect quite a lot, and people expect that Jira will do their job, which is of course not really true. All right, that is it. I think I'm just talking too much today, but I hope you found this video useful and you learned something new.